Oh, too far.
Good morning. Hello. Good morning. Welcome to On A Roll with Ben and Amber. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to the studio.
Wonderful to be here. So happy to replace Declan.
Yes, I mean, aren't we all? I'm confident because he's not around to make me regret my actions.
Yeah, no, it'll be fine. He won't hold this against us.
Yeah, tune in to, I don't know, like episode 10 of Romancing the Dungeon when suddenly our characters die.
Yeah.
And the consequences of our own actions. But you are very welcome this morning, this afternoon, this evening, this sleepy little period when you come home from school and you've fallen asleep and you're like, is it 7 a.m? 7 at night? What's happened? Whenever you're watching this, you're more than welcome to the show. We are talking about players. Everything the other side of the DM screen. So if you're a DM, get out of here. This side of the book ain't for you.
That's you, Declan. Go away.
Yeah. Declan, go on. Get out of here. But if you're a player, you're more than welcome because we're going to talk about our experience as players. Probably where I have the most experience playing these kind of games. Even though most people might have known me as a DM first, I love playing. And I can see in the chat already, there are people I have played with. So, thanks, John. I'm trying to think what else is up. We're going to do a little interview with each other. We're kind of going to do like a duo interview. We're going to discuss some of the prompts and discussions and advice and tidbits shared. I posted out on Instagram a couple of days ago being like, hey, players, what doesn't get discussed enough? And loads of people, thankfully, because it's always embarrassing when they don't, loads of people thankfully responded. So we're going to discuss that. We do have an interview with Keith, who runs D&D in a castle in Ireland, D&D_Eire. A great interview because there's an event coming up in May, of which tickets are on sale now. And between you and me, there is less than 2 handfuls left. There is less than this many tickets left. In fact, there's specifically probably around this many tickets. If you're listening to this.
Probably.
Yeah, 7 tickets left. Last we heard, not a lot of tickets left. So if you want to get tickets, go search D&D Eire. If you type in Bealtana, that will get you to the event. And I'm sure they'll discuss it during the interview as well, how to get tickets. So that's... Anything else I've missed out, Amber? That's kind of it. We might do a little interview with Hephaestus.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. Does she want to come around?
Yeah.
Can I get into it?
She might be busy. What is it? Past 6? She's in the bar.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, if you're nice and chat, we'll treat you.
Because I'm sure that's just what you want.
But thank you for joining us. If you are watching along live, please do let us know anything you think should be discussed more when it comes to being a player at the table. Anything you want us to dip into, because we're going to keep an eye on chat and make sure that we address some of the things you bring up, and not even address them, just straight up read them out and give you credit for it.
Yeah.
So, that's always nice. I think that's the opening. That's opening tick. We've done that bit so far.
Good.
If it's okay with you, we might just dip straight into the interview.
Let's go.
We've never been this long on Ben and Declan on a row without seeing Declan. And I think everyone at home's going, where's Poochie?
Yeah.
So we're going to give you some Poochie. And by that, I mean Declan. So
or Amber, whoever introduced the interview, I'm not sure. And Amber, I hope you're just keeping my seat warm and I'm not permanently usurped. I am joined this evening by Keith from D&D Eire, and Keith and I are going to be chatting about the amazing events that he's been organizing the last while.
Thank you very much for having me. It is a pleasure and an honor.
We met at VentureCon, and
right, yes.
Yeah. So the rest is. Well, this and
making history. We're making history.
The rest is history currently being made. Keith, for anybody that may not know you, can you tell us a little bit about who you are?
I can definitely try. Hello, my name is Keith Allen. I am an Irish D&D fan / nerd. I'm a big fan of currently D&D, which I only got into in the last, I'm going to say definitely the last decade anyway, less than that. but COVID made time go all a bit weird, so I'm not exactly too sure exactly how long that is. But I've always been a big fantasy fan, Lord of the Rings, Discworld, Irish mythology, Star Wars, all that kind of thing. And I also, as a day job, I work in the events industry, in the Irish events industry. I I work at festivals and tours and that kind of a thing. So the reason I'm here, or what I'm currently doing in the D&D community, is that a few years ago, after getting into playing D&D and loving D&D and starting to kind of like meet other members of the Irish D&D community through like Discord and that kind of a thing, I played a game of D&D with my friends in a local castle here in the Midlands in Tullamore. And a friend of mine, or I know the family that own or live in the castle, they were very gracious to allow my home game to play there. I thought it was fantastic. It was such a buzz to play D&D in an actual castle. So we did that. And then I kind of started thinking about it. And I said, why don't we try and do this for other people, inviting other people down? So since then, I have, or myself and my events partner, Liam, we have started organizing these games, as you mentioned already, these events, which are basically kind of day-long D&D games in a castle. So yeah, people get to come and play D&D in a castle.
What was it, do you think, that kind of, because like I'll be honest with you, I don't know if everybody who plays D&D, I think nearly every D&D party is like, man, you know what we should do? We should rent a castle and play our game in a castle just once. Like just for that, like, you know, even if it's the final session, like I know we've talked about it in D8 Dungeon, like, man, it would be class to just like get a castle and just play a game. And anyway, what changed what was that? Was it the atmosphere? Was it the space? Was there something kind of in the air?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of all of it. Well, I think it's kind of like, I'm trying to think of a really good example of like two things that go well together, but all I could think of is like butter and toast.
Perfect. It was butter and toast.
It's very Irish. Yeah, tea and biscuits. But it's one of those things, you know, D&D, like I know, and what I love about D&D, and I'm surely preaching to the choir here, is, you know, the variation, and it's not just like, you know, wizards and goblins in a dungeon, and it's not just that kind of like tropey kind of thing. But that is at the heart of it, I think, for most people. And it's similar to why I think it really attracts like people that are into like cosplay and that kind of a thing. They go very well together. And D&D and being in a full-on castle is just, I think it's, you spend so long in D&D visualizing and imagining, and that's, for me, that's a huge part of the draw, you know, like to go in and tell these stories and create anything you want. But this is kind of one of the things that I love the most about running these games, is to see the people's faces when they arrive at first, because it's a very cool looking castle. You go up the drive to get there, and it just kind of rises out of the trees and the scenery around it, and then to be like, oh shit, I'm actually going into a castle and I'm going to play D&D. It's a little bit of a few different things, but yeah, there's something they just go seriously well together. So it's very cool.
I'm curious, because you said it's it's a day of D&D, and that is that sort of we start at 10 and we go hard for the day, that it's like up until like 6-7 o'clock, and it's just roll initiative, we're in the tavern, we're on to the next thing, and away we go. Or what does a day look like at the event?
What an excellent question. Yeah, no, that's good. Yes, that is kind of it. Basically, the schedules change a little bit depending on the game, and every time we run it, we're trying to say, oh, that worked and that didn't work, so we'll do more of this and less of that, and etc., etc. But the format that's kind of has come to the fore and has developed over the few games we've run is that, yeah, everybody obviously comes to the castle and sits down around 11 o'clock. We've kind of like an hour or so for people to like chat and hang out. We usually kick off around midday. I kind of do like a little bit of an introductory. If you share Harker's video, you'll hear me talking as I read out the kind of introductory text. So everyone that's playing will have like maybe like 6, depending on the size of the game and stuff, 5 to like 10 different tables of players, and everyone's playing the same game. it's one of the things I like to do for my own ego trip is I write the outline of the adventure. So, and I, as I mentioned, I'm a big Irish mythology fan, so I kind of insist on setting it in ancient Ireland and basing it around, well, first of all, we based them around the Celtic festivals, so Bealtaine, Imbolc, that kind of a thing. But secondly, Irish mythology. So there's that. So I'll do my little intro around midday. We kind of have like a little bit of an so the game kind of starts then, I suppose, and goes on. We take a break around 2 o'clock for maybe an hour. We come back around 3, and then play keeps going till about 5 or 6 o'clock. I think 6 o'clock we usually try to have it finished, because for the DM's sake, God love them, it's a long day running games. And then, but that always varies because, as you know yourself, D&D doesn't have a hard start and a hard stop. And we try not to put too much pressure on people to stop at a particular time, because you don't want to be like, right, we've gotten to the conclusion, we're fighting the vampire or the hag of winter or the big dragon or whatever it is. And it's like, no, time's up. So you can't do that anymore. So we let it go. And then we try and spend a bit of time where people can just kind of like hang out and get to know each other and enjoy being in the castle. So usually finishing up around 7 o'clock. So that's kind of the day of it. And all the DMs then, as I say, I kind of give them, we went through different variations. The first game, I was very kind of specific and explicit about what happened in the game and like wrote out like maps and all this kind of a thing. But that leaned too much in the being specific side of things. So now it's a little bit more, I just give like overviews of like beats of the story. So as I say, the idea is everyone is playing the same game. Each DM is running their own version of that story, but we'd like to have some interactivity between tables. So you're not just playing with your group, you feel like everyone's kind of doing the same thing and having the same fun. And afterwards you can find out, how did you guys get on with that particular bad guy? Or did you get this encounter? Or, what did you do? And, so hopefully it works out. I think people seem to enjoy it anyway, so.
Before I ask you a little bit more about kind of the event structure and stuff like that, but can you tell me a little bit about what people who were like, oh, that sounds class, and I'm free the Bay Bank holiday weekend, and I know how to get to Tullamore. What can people expect from the Flames of Bealtaine without giving too many spoilers away? Like, what's the sort of general?
Well, as you mentioned, the next game is titled The Flames of Bealtaine. I've kind of gotten into the of the titles. I don't know if you noticed, but all of them have been like, this is The Flames of Bealtaine. There was The Curse of Castle Ravenhill. There was I can't remember the other ones right now. But it's got was one the Siege of Spring, yes, which is very Song of Ice and Fire inspired. But yeah, it's always been the something of something. So this is The Flames of Bealtaine. It is, as the title suggests, based around the Bealtaine Festival. And it is going to be, spoilers, not really. It's going to be set on the Hill of Ishnak at a Bealtaine Festival. Many, many, many years ago, way back when. And if you see the poster, which you probably will at some stage, you will see a dragon rising from the flames. So no spoilers there, but there is totally a dragon and a bonfire and Bealtaine. So that's cool. So that's what that is going to be about. I won't go too much more into it. That's kind of it. We try and keep it, obviously, because it's a one-shot, it's a one-day event. You want people to be able to get in, get the point, do the thing, fight the bad guy, and go home without like getting bogged down. It's very difficult. Any DM out there listening knows it's actually nearly easier to run like a campaign than it is to run a one-shot to get things moving and keep them moving. So we try not to bog things, make them too overly complicated.
Is this something that you really should come knowing the basics or the rules, or would you say that this is sort of open to everybody at all levels of entry into the hobby?
Another fantastic question, Declan. Thank you very much. No, this is for literally everybody. We have had complete beginners. I've turned up, I've never played D&D before, and I've sat down at one of our tables and learned D&D. We've had people that have then said, that was really fun, but it's not for me. And we have people that have said, I absolutely loved it. And actually, one of them is from Tullamore, and he came and played at the last game. And now I play with him regularly in the session in the local library, because he's after getting mad into D&D. But he didn't know how to play at all. I think he'd like played some video games and maybe saw like some Critical Role or live stream. So all of our DMs are very beginner friendly and supportive, and I think that kind of nearly goes to for every DM out there. I don't think I've ever encountered a DM that was didn't, warm and encourage people in. We have specifically lower levels of play, tables with lower levels of play for beginners, because obviously there's less things to try and figure out. You have a level 5 spellcaster and you have like 10 sheets of spells. What language is this? So we try and keep that, but there's no restriction. A lot of our players, we tend to kind of as regards the levels and experiences of the tables and the DMs and stuff, what we do and actually this is a good shout for you and Ben, Declan, because I don't think I've explained this to you guys yet properly. But
Ben, you better be listening.
We have a Discord, is it server? I don't really know much about. I think it's called a Discord server for the game itself, and all of our guests, we invite them to join that, and then we set up private channels with the DMs and the players at their table like a week or so beforehand, so they have a chance to talk with the players, help them create characters, and then discuss what kind of level do you guys want to play, and how do you want to do this, or what, so they then figure it out amongst themselves. I do get an idea beforehand of what level players are looking for, and I kind of say, okay, listen, we need someone to run. We've had a lot of people looking for a level 14 table. Is anyone up for doing that? We've got a lot of beginners, and we kind of pair them off like that. But yeah, the players and the DMs kind of come up with it amongst themselves. So that's handy.
Yeah. So no, that's really cool to hear, because I agree with you. I'm a big lover of teaching this hobby. Like, it's so much fun, especially if you have a table where there's like one or two people who, one might be totally new, the other person has dabbled but isn't still certain, and everybody gets involved in teaching them, because it's not just the DM that does it. The other players are there to help. It's why I always say people who play casters are always the better players, because they know all the casting rules. As opposed, I hit stuff. I keep hitting stuff.
Better players. That's a very controversial term to be thrown around there, Declan.
I'll be editing that out. Or will I? Who knows? I might just let Ben deal with the consequences of the things I say.
He'll have to. Who's manning chat for this?
Amber.
Yeah. Enjoy, guys.
Sucks to be.
I'll be in chat giving out.
Yeah, how dare you? Yeah. I'll join it as well, just to annoy everybody. With I guess with somebody, again, so if we've kind of got, this is open for everybody, there is that sort of, I'm used to playing in a home game, or I'm used to playing online. How does it work then, where I'm going to be in a room and there's going to be tables and then everybody's going to be around? Am I going to be heard? Is it going to be like, what's the general sort of vibe then on the day, like, with X amount of tables running and X amount of players and X amount of DMs? Is there sort of like this sort of like, oh wow, that's what 60 players of D&D and 6 DMs sound like all at once?
For sure. We've gone through variations of this. As I say, we had them at different sizes and stuff. And in general, it's okay. I think there is always a bit of background sound and stuff, and depending, there's always kind of like some louder people and some quieter people. It doesn't tend to be too disruptive. We haven't had any major issues on that front. I suppose I can't guarantee anything, because as I say, you could have louder people, but no, in general, it's very contained to the table. People there's a lot of energy in the room, so that kind of feeds into it. I find it makes it more exciting. I've played. Now, unfortunately, I don't get to play and I don't get to DM at the events. I just kind of like keep an eye on everything and make sure everybody's having a good time and that kind of a thing. But having played myself at conventions and stuff like that, I could definitely say that compared to like a home game is good, and I thoroughly enjoy it, but there is a certain kind of an extra energy of having lots of other people. It's like, I don't know if this might be just a me thing, but I do enjoy going to comic conventions, and when I kind of walk into the room and I see lots of people like in costume and shuffling around and looking through comics and stuff, it's kind of like I get a good feeling off it. It's kind of like, oh yeah, I like, that's the energy That's a kind of, I don't know if it's like an energy sound or a wave thing or whatever it is, vibrations or something. But it's kind of like that. There is a bit of background noise, and it gets it can get exciting at times, but it's definitely it's a very positive experience.
I'm so excited for this. The first time we were talking about it, I was like, oh man, that sounds class. I'd love to do it. And then just time just wasn't our friend. So this I'm really keen for. I've read the outline. That looks amazing. The castle looks amazing. If you're sitting there going, just get the ticket. You're just
do it. If there's tickets still available.
Yeah, if they're still available. Like that's like, come on. Keith,
and before we finish up, there is one more spoilers in the word. You heard it here first, kind of a situation. But or maybe it's announced at this stage. Probably not, because I'm busy and I'm trying to get stuff done. But we are last time we had a kind of like, we did a promo thing in advance where it was like introducing the DMs, and we proposed for each of our DMs. We have something a little different. Each DM is going to be a chieftain of their own specific clan, and they have been invited to the Bealtaine Fire Festival. With very specific reason and purpose to that. But all of your DMs, Declan and Ben included, are going to creating their own clans and becoming chieftains for the day. So I'm very excited to see that. And the sound of a crown sounds very cool indeed, Declan. I look forward to seeing that. You've committed now. It's
yeah, I have. Damn it! I said it. Yeah, no, that's gonna go straight to my head. I'm so sorry. He's just the GM. He's just the GM. He's actually not the ruler of anything.
It can be.
It all starts there. Plan to take over after Bealtaine. But no, Keith, thank you so much. This was an absolute blast. I'm really looking forward to the event. And do make sure you are following D+D Eire over on Instagram. And hopefully you've picked up your ticket now. And hopefully Keith and I and Ben, maybe Amber wants to come too. We'll see you in the castle for some D&D. And Ben, Amber, back to you.
Hi.
Welcome back. And thank you so much. It wouldn't be Ben and Declan on a roll without a little bit of Declan. So we're contractually obliged to include.
I'll allow a little bit.
Yeah, it's oh great. I was answering a question in chat just before we go back, but it has been answered. So thank you very much, Keith Allen, and also for putting in the social handles. That should have been me, and I didn't do it. And I should have been doing it the entire time during that interview. So
look, without Declan here, you just fall apart, don't you?
Genuinely, he is the glue that holds my inability to concentrate together. But to make up for compensation, one more time, do head over to @DnD_Eire. That is EI or E. Ben, make sure you know how to spell the thing before you confidently go into it. Which you will find over on definitely on Instagram and across the usual social channels. And there are 7 tickets left. But the important thing to say is that 7 tickets left for this event. So definitely go follow, keep an eye out, because there'll be other ones throughout the year. Other ones where we might be there. Chances are we will. I'll never tell. That brings us to chatting players. And I know during the interview there, we did get some prompts in from chat. So to kick us off, this is all about players, player styles, player etiquettes, what makes a good player, what makes a bad player, what we like in players, all that kind of stuff. But a good little question that we got, let me find it, which was to discuss the biggest mistake first or new players have when creating their background story. And that's a pretty good one. I don't know if, Amber, if you want to, anything comes to mind for you?
Nothing specifically about creating the story itself. I think the mistake would come more in, and I don't want to poo-poo on anybody who does take things very seriously, but I think the mistake would be in taking your backstory very seriously and not having any wiggle room there. Because I know when I create a new character, this is where they come from and this is who they are, and then 5 sessions in, and I'm like, actually, no, that's not who they are anymore, is it? Because I find the character as I go. So I think really my big advice there is that's just a springboard. But you'll find the character as you go. The backstory will come from yourself, maybe from other characters, from your DM as you go. Like, it shouldn't be a solid thing set in stone the whole way through the game.
I think that's great. It's there as a reference, it's a guide. And thank you. That question was from Seamaster D. So thank you very much. Seamaster D has probably seen me make this mistake. So I don't mind sharing it, which is exactly that. Being a bit too rigid in what I had in mind for the character. And also preparing too much. Like, I'd almost written a novella for who this character was, that there was then, in a way, I left no room for character growth or development or like spaces where the game would fill in that. So it's just like, my very first character was a high prince who was like, I'd made a family tree of like 500 elves.
Okay. The whole royal family.
Yeah, I was like, this is where I am, this is what I do, this is what I think about the monarchy, this is where I shirk responsibilities, all that kind of stuff, and rightfully so. There was no opportunity to really weave that into the game I was playing, because it was just like, well, it's not really, it's kind of about that, but it's maybe not. And not that it was wasted work, but it just, I could have just boiled it down to a line, like pompous, annoying, very stereotypical elf.
Yeah.
But I did find it fun to explore that aspect, but not to rigidly stick to it. So it's like having an idea in mind, but then you're kind of giving your DM a lot of homework and a lot of like, okay, I already have a plan. How am I going to wedge? Like, if it fits in naturally, fantastic. But don't be upset if they can't weave it in, or especially if they can't weave it in straight away.
Yeah.
And good DMs usually won't. They'll usually wait a little bit, and they're like, "Bam! I hit you with that thing you gave me 3 months ago."
You're crying now.
Yeah. And I think it's a common thing. Keith Allen, you're also saying left no room in the backstory for the DM to use. That's like, it is a classic mistake. So it's figuring that out. And Seamaster D, biggest mistake was not talking to the DM and getting the vibe of the world and the type of session before bringing the character in, because then it becomes a genre clash. I'm trying to think. I have some questions for you specifically, Amber, as a player. You're a player I have the utmost respect for. I genuinely envy at the table because you're so good at what you do, and I am chomping at the bit to ask you some of these questions, if you don't mind.
All right, okay.
Not to butter you up too much. But when it comes to playing games like this, what do you look for in other players?
So I think there needs to be an actual connection between the people, not just the characters. I think you need to vibe with the people at the table. If your play styles are too different, or if not everybody at the table understands the vibe of the game, I think somebody is bound to have a bad time. So there needs to be that communication at the start, but I think naturally everybody, and not even necessarily best friends, because I've done one-shots for the drive or other bits for other events, and I don't necessarily know these people, but we get on from the start. And I think a big part of it is just that personality kind of mesh and respect for each other. And again, kind of that looseness to go, all right, well, this is going that direction now, so I guess so am I. And let everybody have that space.
Yeah, I think that's really nice. It ties into something Keith Allen's saying in chat, which is session 0 can be good to help players with character creation and incorporate world narrative into game. And I think session 0 is also just a great spot to like see if you're all on the same wavelength, same sense of humor, same sense of whatever, because no one really wants to be at a table where it's like, and then I go over and I rip his body open and I eat all his guts. And you're like, oh, right. Unless it's like, hey, we're playing this brand new game, like goblins, werewolves, and nasty boys. And it's like, and that's like, then the vibe makes sense. And in that kind of game, you don't want the kind of like, well, my God says it's unnasty. Like sometimes character clashes can be fun when it's the characters clashing, but the players get it.
Yes.
But if it's the player being like, oh, I think we should, plan this out loads, and like, we're not playing a planny kind of game. for sure.
No, there definitely has to be agreement between the actual players, the people at the start. Yeah.
I think it also, something I'm guilty of and something I'm not great at, which I'd love to do more at the table, is like timeouts in a way. When you're in something, it feels like it destroys momentum to be like, whoa, 1 second, can I just check something? But like, and I think that applies to like a lot of aspects in life, but like sense checking and vibe checking they don't disrupt as much as you think. Just being like, no, can I just check something? Is this the kind of game we're playing? It's like, you're gonna have more fun if everyone's on the same page. And if you're not on the same page straight away, that doesn't mean you like wait until the end of the session to be like, so I hated that.
Yeah. I think there've been a couple of times in romancing where like Hephaestus and somebody's talking and I've just been like, okay, I hear the words that you're saying, but are you saying them as like this joke and this vibe, or are you like, is your character being very serious here? Just so I know. And I Hephaestus might misunderstand that, but I want to know what direction I need to be taking this in. And again, maybe the characters still clash. Maybe Hephaestus thinks it's a joke when it's very serious or whatever. But yeah, I definitely think there's been a couple of times where I'm like, 2 seconds out of character. Is that what you actually meant? It is. Okay, great. Let's go.
Yeah.
And it just keeps things running smooth.
Yeah. And it might feel counterproductive because it's like, I'm slowing things down, but you're slowing things down to speed things up again. And it's definitely something I forget to flag at the table, that I'll sometimes respond to, like, say if someone's describing a character moment and they're being like, my character does this and they're thinking this and like they're doing that, like I might, because I can't help myself, and it's a bad player trait, I think it's something I need to work on, is like respond as my character in my character voice, and then it often leads to a moment where it's just like, oh, so you can't actually hear that, and I have to go, well, I didn't actually say that. Like, I was just sort of like aside to the audience, like, and this is like a little
Stage
fourth wall
whisper.
breaking. Because I'm aware that my character doesn't have that information, but I did want to like add a little bit of spice to the table in a kind of like, this would be a fun little joke here. If I, so it's being aware of who's saying what and with what intention is a good piece of advice. I'm going to dip into chat. Miss Althea is saying that they had a mini session 0 before one of the castle games, so one of the games at Keith's event, and it was great, even though it's a one-shot. So it's session 0s aren't just for like long campaigns. They're great for one-shots, and they don't have to be session length. Like, if it's 5 minutes, if it's 10, if it's 15, like especially at the castle games, it's a long day. You can give up 20 minutes, 30 minutes just to like set the tone. Yeah. Because it also allows people have paid into an event, and if they're at my table and they go, oh no, and they do an incredible job matching players with DMs, so it's unlikely to happen. But if it did happen, that they were like, this is not my vibe, that session 0 is a great chance for like a player to put their hand up and be like, can I swap? Like, it's totally, like, no offense to be taken, hopefully. And then so they're saying their session 0 was about 45 minutes. And from Plitter Me Pretty, respectful players are so important. Sticking to his lines and veils. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And when everyone's on the same page, more comfortable with another, and the story goes better. And I also think you can kind of push things further. Like, in a way, you can kind of like explore different aspects because it's like the safety net of knowing each other is there. For sure. Always very nice. A question from chat for you, Amber. How do you, as another player, how do you as another player know when to say something and not interrupt a player moment? That's a good point. And actually, your answer might help me because that's my problem.
Well, no, I don't know if that's a great question for me because Declan loves to tell the story of, I think I've gotten a little bit better, but especially in season 1 of Romancing, Hephaestus was very much so the scorned ex. And I got into that mindset way too easily. And every time Sam said anything as Nate, you can hear me in the background whispering into the mic, just fucking dumbass. I hate him so much. And some of it we were able to cut and some of it we were not able to cut. So I don't know if that's the best question for me, but I do think it is just, it comes down to vibe a little bit again. Is this a table where I can make snarky remarks and that doesn't actually interrupt anything? Is everybody okay with that? And it's also reading the room. Is this the right moment for me to interrupt? If we're all just having a laugh or there's something silly happening, or even maybe in the middle of just like a high action combat with lower stakes, you can probably interrupt and make a joke or pass a comment? But is this a very emotional scene? And is this actually somebody else's moment? You know, you just need to know that maybe that's where we keep that to ourselves for the minute, say it after, or not at all if it doesn't really suit the moment. So it is a lot of interpreting what's happening around you, but I think you really just need to listen to what everybody else is doing and read the room.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And especially, I think you'll find as players, it's in those big emotional moments that the biggest impulse to puncture with humor will bubble up. You'll be like, because, you know, that's how it's like handle difficult emotions sometimes. You sort of Peter Parker it. You're like, I think I know this situation. So it's in those moments to be aware of it, and probably a good way to figure out how to explore that in a safe space. Like, how would this might teach me something in real life when someone gives me like an emotional, when they're dealing with certain emotions, this might help me learn how to cope with that in a safe space.
D&D is therapy.
Back to my specific questions for you. So this is outside the table in a way. I suppose this comes to like, who brings the snacks? Who organizes the schedule? Who does XYZ? Do you think there's a role, or if there are, what roles are there that players are better at taking on in a TTRPG group? The usual thing is it all falls on the DM, but is there something where you go, actually players would just be better at that?
Yeah, I mean, while I guess it depends on your DM as well, because some people like to have that little bit more control.
Some people.
But I definitely think it's some people. But I definitely think as a player, it's your responsibility to move the story forward. You know, like, sure, the DM is probably dangling a carrot some of the way to get you to do what they want you to do, but you should want to move forward. You shouldn't want to stay in this sleepy town for, we're just going to live here now. I'm actually done interacting with everybody. And ideally, your DM would be flexible enough to take on the things you're saying and doing and let that also change the world and build the world. I was playing with Declan before. We were playing Dungeon World years ago. And I had come to him with my character. She was a wood elf. And I was like, her backstory is that there's a rot in her forest and trees are dying, the plants are dying, the animals are dying, the people are dying. And she is on a quest to figure that out. That became part of the world then. There was no intention when Declan started for there to be a rot. And it became this big supernatural thing, and it became a big part of things. But there needs to be that collaboration that I'm bringing to him. This is something I'd like to explore. Let's build the world together. You know? So I think your job as player is to explore what's being given to you, but push forward and bring new ideas to the table and shake things up.
Yeah, it's a great point, because often we leave the drama and the action in the hands of the DM, and it's not, you know, it leads to some bad games, to the teeth-pulling games. The other thing I would suggest, if you're watching along, is, and this is something we did on Homebrew, is I didn't make rule callings. We had a rules lawyer at the table that was a player. So it meant when we were in situations where it's like, how does this work? How does that work? It wasn't me as the DM being like, well, this is how it works. We turned to the rules, who it was Wes, we turned to the rules lawyer and we're like, what do you think? And it meant that calls were perceived as fairer. Not that my calls wouldn't be fair, but it was someone on the player side being like, well, actually, this, and this.
It is cool if you could do that, but you can't, so. Yeah.
But it also gave me the opportunity to be the cool parent, where it's like, well, they're saying no, but I'm saying yes. But at least it set a precedent for, you know, the Homebrew players are great. None of them would have done this anyway, but sometimes if you're DMing something, a call you make in one session mightn't be the same call you make the next. And because I was very clear, it's like, I'll let this happen this time because it was someone else's rule. I wasn't like giving an inch and them taking a mile. They weren't like, well, water works like this last time. And I'm like, you can't. That's not how water works everywhere. My next one is more about character creation, or also, I suppose, about character development. Where do you get your inspiration for a character, whether it's for a one-shot or like a long campaign like Romancing? What's your go-to?
Well, for romancing, it was very easy because it was pitched to me as a rom-com. So my first thought was we have to pick a cliche and we have to run with that. So is it the preppy girl? Is it the nerdy girl? Is it like who in a rom-com setting am I playing? I was very close to not going with Hephaestus, and I was very close to creating a horse girl druid whose only goal was to become a horse and could not figure it out, and she was desperate to get there. And then I settled on our big titty goth girlfriend instead. But I definitely think it depends on the game you're playing. So is it a one shot? Because then just anything, whatever suits you, because it's the one and only time you're going to get to do this. Generally, with one shots, you can be a bit more loose, a bit more silly, a bit more over the top, depending on the game itself. But yeah, I definitely based it a bit more on what world am I stepping into, and what kind of person is in that world, and what kind of character is needed at the table. So when we were first setting up, it was, okay, Sam, so what are you thinking about? And what are you thinking about, Louise? And let's see what kind of characters we're bringing to the table. And if we're kind of stepping on toes, maybe we'll readjust so that you have a nice balanced table as well.
Yeah, I think it's one of those ones where if there are two characters that are kind of alike, chances are in playstyle they won't be, but it's better to know going in. Like, I'm never against like oops all bards or like anything where it's just like two clerics in a party. What are we thinking?
Yeah,
because chances are they'll play them differently, and especially with D&D 5e, there's so many subclasses that it will change, and and people are different. It's the same thing about like art, which is like, you start out imitating, but it's never exactly the same as what you're copying because your own spin will be on it. This question, and it's my last for you, before potentially talking directly to Hephaestus, which will be a lot of fun. I'm a little scared.
You should be.
But in that same vein, do you have any activities or rituals or hobbies or anything outside of the table, outside of games that you do, which you would loosely count? And I'll give you an example from my life to kind of set the expectation. You'd loosely count as like still playing a TTRPG. So for me, I keep a little journal as AJ. So after sessions, I'll write down his kind of general feelings and thoughts. And I'll also go on what I call AJ walks. And AJ walks are me walking to like nice places in the vicinity, like nature places, or like going for a jog, in which I will just sort of chat to him about stuff. Which is fun because like if I'm jogging or doing exercise, I'm like, this sucks. And then AJ comes in and is like, but it won't suck later. And I'm like, oh, I hate you. I hate you so much. You are such a vault dweller of a man to dip into current good media news. But yeah, and I do have playlists as well. I have multiple playlists. I've got AJ's Piston Poppin' playlist, which is his workout tunes. Nice. He has a playlist dedicated to Fia. And that helps me focus into like, right, this is who he is. For you, is there anything you like to dip into?
Yeah, so I do the playlist thing as well. I have a few different ones for Hephaestus as well. So I have one that I think we've kind of shared publicly as D8 Dungeon as kind of like a curated character kind of vibe. But then I have a playlist called She's a Hot Mess, and it's just songs about being like a disaster of a human being. I have one called Hephaestus and Nate for Never, which is just a bunch of breakup songs, and yeah, just bits like that. So it kind of depends on where we are in the story, what she's going through. I've actually really struggled to make a season 2 playlist, and I haven't managed to, because so many different things are happening. There's so many different things are going through her head. I haven't actually managed to pin down a playlist for season 2. And we're into season 3 now. So, so I do a bit of that. And I kind of have conversations in my head, or like I'll play through scenes in my head that I think are in her past. So like the first time she and Nate met, what does that look like? And I'll just like sit there and mind palace it kind of a thing. Or if I have an idea of what's coming up in the session, I might sit around and think about, well, what's that going to look like? What does she want to say and do? that's not what's going to happen because it never is, but just an idea of the vibe that I want to bring to the table that day. That's kind of all I really do. The playlist is good to kind of get me into the headspace. And otherwise, yeah, just kind of, because I do this with my own life as well. I sit around and I have to do this tomorrow and I'm going to play out this whole conversation in my head and I'm going to get there and it's not going to go like that. But I also do that for D&D.
Yes, yeah. I think it's a good thing to do, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people out there do have those kind of prep rituals. Keith Allen in chat is saying that they've heard of the playlist thing, but they're asking, how does it work? Do you make it while in character or help refine a character? My answer to that is yes. A little bit of both. I try to make it while in character, but in making it, it is refining the character.
Yeah.
So like, I might find a song and I'm like, oh, maybe that's not totally right. And like, and it's an ever evolving thing. Like my workout playlist for AJ is different now going into season 3 than it was when initially making it in season 2, because he's different.
Yeah.
And I don't get rid of songs. I just kind of add more on, and I'm like, okay. And so yeah, they're asking, is it tunes that the character might listen to? For me, it's like tunes that like sum up the character. I suppose it helps me get into character. I'm like, this is the feeling they might feel, but I'm not suggesting that this music exists in their world or that they even know about the song itself. But if they were literally here, if AJ was standing here living in this world, this would be the playlist.
Yeah, so it's kind of, while I might do it in character, I can only do it in character so much because this music doesn't exist in Romancing the Dungeon. Not unless Declan's going to start whipping out like Bridgerton style covers, which I would love. But you know, it is kind of a mix of that. Like the kind of curated playlists that we've shared it's all like pop punk, you know, I Hate the World and My Parents Suck. So in that way, it's something she would listen to. It's probably it's the vibe of the songs that she'd probably be looking for, you know, in her world and in the time. But then like the breakup playlist has Kelly Clarkson, Since You've Been Gone, and Hephaestus would never be caught dead listening to that. But man, does it feel good to shout that out a car window when you're mad at somebody, you know? So it's definitely a mix. And I do kind of split the playlist of this is what she would listen to and this is what I listen to get in character. They are kind of two different playlists for me. There's some crossover for sure, but I do kind of separate those out for myself.
There is a Lords of the Lost album, which is them covering pop songs. So I think that I'll send it over to you after this, because you might find stuff that would be at the less poppy for Festa, but same song and lyrics.
Yeah.
Same
I'm a
vibe,
big fan of the pop goes punk or punk goes pop, whichever way they word it. I'm a huge fan of that stuff. Yeah.
There is there's a few people in chat who also make playlists, and if you're watching this after the fact, if you're not watching it live, drop a little playlist in the comments, link to your playlist. I'd love to listen. I will say to you now that I'll remember to put the playlists we've mentioned in the show notes. You will be able to tell me if I have remembered, if you're looking and they're not there. And I'll tell you what will definitely get me to put them there. A little comment in the box that says, Ben, you idiot. Get this in there.
We can tweet them out after the show as well if you'd like. I can pop them up on Twitter.
Yeah. I'll go find them. Some of them are... No, I'm happy to share everything. Just don't judge me. Okay? Don't judge me.
Or do judge me, but keep it to yourself.
Yeah. It would destroy me. We're almost coming up to the hour, and this might be the very first On A Roll where we've done a tight 60.
You're welcome.
There are plenty of other things to talk about when it comes to player stuff, and this won't be the last time we do have this discussion at the table here on the show. But I think to close us out, I would like to, if possible, speak to Hephaestus Tinderson.
Okay. Let me just... Maybe let me do one of these.
Oh, nice.
Fuck do you want?
Well, hello. I need to make sure it's funny. My body instantly said, "Pull AJ to your own defense." It was like, just get him out of here quick. But no. Hi, I'm Ben. Nice to meet you, Hephaestus. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, which I have taken from friend of the longtime fan, since deceased man, James Lipton. I'm going to ask you 10 questions. To get to know. Actually, that reminds me, I don't do this as a player, but it is worth doing. There's like lists of like 101 questions to know yourself better, and like questions you should ask your significant other to like establish a deeper relationship. My advice, and I am saying this as someone who doesn't do it, but I do think it's good advice.
Do it anyway.
Do that with your character. Like, go through those questions and like ask your character them, and you might find some nice stuff. So it just, when you were talking, it reminded me to say that, and then I forgot, as I want to do, and then this reminded me. Sorry, and by you I mean Amber, who was just here a second ago.
She's gone now, so
yeah, she's out here. Hephaestus, what is your favorite word?
I love telling people no. Just no.
And what is your least favorite word?
Please.
Nice. What turns you on?
Everything.
And what turns you off?
Ugh. Just people with real bad vibes, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I do know. I know this one guy. What sound or noise do you love?
Crackling of a giant fire.
And then what sound or noise do you hate?
Nate's voice.
Shame it's back too. Got this nice, arrogant, pompous voice for a while. Somehow less grating. What is your favorite curse word?
Fuck.
What profession, other than your own, would you like to attempt?
I could definitely be like sorceress for some rich asshole, right? Some king or something.
Yeah, like a court sorceress.
Yeah, I'm great at what I do.
Yeah.
And moving on.
What profession would you not like to do?
Anything like dirty, like stable boy or something.
Yeah. Shoveling shit.
Yeah, absolutely not.
And finally, just to close us out, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear Amber say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
That all things considered, maybe I didn't do too bad.
Yeah, nice. That is the end of Hephaestus. You're free to go.
Goodbye.
You can stick around if you want, but
hey, Ben.
Hey, well, you just missed Hephaestus.
God damn it!
Yeah, every time.
I'm so excited.
I don't know. Thank you for indulging me with that little exercise. I thought it would be fun, and it was.
Thank God.
I had a great time. And yes, a big shout out to Keith Talon. Thank you so much for coming on the show to do the interview. We cannot wait to DM at the event in May. And we'll definitely have you back on to talk other things that aren't the events. There's plenty more to talk about, Keith. So keep your eyes on your phone because we'll be in touch. We can keep chatting. Is there anything else player-wise? Oh, you know what I never went into? I totally skipped a section. The prompts that I was sent.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Jesus. Let's please run through those.
Yes. Oh, my God. I was like, how are we on time?
We are organized.
It's because I forgot something. It's the theme of this show. Let me just pull them up my phone here. Give me 1 second. All right. Yes. So, the question I put out there for anyone who didn't see it on the @Homebrew Quest Instagram was a shout out to TTRPG players for help. There's loads of discussions and tips around how to DM, and I asked, what do you think should be discussed more when it comes to being a player? So some of these are questions, some of these are just topics, and starting with the very first one from, I hope they don't mind me calling out their username. That's a good point. I'm just gonna balancing from our first question in from this person. Sorry if I'm robbing you of that sweet little dopamine hit when you hear your name read out somewhere, because I definitely get one of those. So I apologize if I've taken that from you. I will make it up to you somehow. They want to discuss balancing your character with letting others shine as well, especially new players. So like, I think in these instances, it's like my character would definitely like rush forward and kind of own the scene. But how do you balance that with maybe it's time to let someone else shine? And I think it's right to put it in this category because sometimes this gets pushed onto DMs. Like the DM is in control of the limelight.
Oh yeah.
And I don't think that's always the best way to do it. So especially a new player. So what would do you have any actually, like maybe not even tips or advice, but like stories or situations where you've either DM'd or been a player and you've seen it just done really well?
Yeah, again, I think the problem is a lot of these kind of come down to the same thing of know each other, know the vibe of the table, that kind of a way. I've definitely, so like for example, Declan occasionally plays in one shots with me, and Declan knows exactly what he's doing. He's a forever DM, and but I think because of that, he is very good to, when things go quiet, when there's a lull, he's very good to step in and pick it back up. But then when somebody else wants to do something, he's very quick to step back and let it happen. So I think it really comes down to the flow of the story. Is there a lull here? Have we kind of died off? Do we need to do something? Then yeah, step in, say something, make a move, make a decision. But if somebody else is actively interested in doing something, as long as they're not somebody who kind of is always doing something, then
yes,
step back and let it happen naturally. But it's a lot about just reading the room. And again, is this the right time for me to do something? And I think if it's something that's very important to you as a player or important to your character to do, you know, if you know the big battle with the big bads coming up and you've been chasing that guy for 3, I almost said seasons. I don't think other people play by seasons. You know, if you have personal beef and you know that's in the next couple of sessions, then maybe that's a conversation you have at the table of, I really want my character to be first one in the door there. And there've been discussions we've had where I've said to Declan in the table that, look, if Hesta's not in a good way, she will absolutely be very unhinged, reactive, kind of not smart. That's what she would be doing here. So I'm not going to be playing smart this session. It's going to be stupid and it's going to cause trouble. And then everyone's just kind of like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But it's all about the discussion.
Yeah, and I think it's okay to break kayfabe amongst your own table. To be like, this is what's going to happen. We had a lovely moment in a recent recording we did for season 3 where I won't give, without giving anything away, there was that kind of vacuum of like, who's going to do this?
Yeah.
And I was aware that I was sort of taking up more space in that episode anyway, so I stepped back. But then as players, both yourself and Sam were kind of like, no, I think it doesn't need of you to do this. It's like, yeah. Okay. But it was that little check-in to be like, right, AJ's going to go forward and do this. And the only thing I regret after the fact is like not turning around as in character and be like, how does my hair look? Like just doing like a little kind of like check-in with the guy. Yeah. And just be like, and you have those regrets. And I did make the mistake once to the exact situation you were saying. It was a big bad. It was someone's like, it was a specific player's like main antagonist. And I just leveled up and gotten a new spell. So like mid-battle, we're like chasing them around. I'm like, Force Cage or like Wind Wall or something. Yeah. And I was just like, I thought I was doing great. I was like, got him. Like, right, we now have him so we can like monologue at him or do whatever. Yeah. And this character was like running in ready to an attack. And the player was like kind of annoyed because they're like, if I don't attack him right now, I lose in the end of I haven't used it by a round, so I lose all the things that I built up. Yeah. And I'm like, but if I let him free,
we're starting all over.
The rest of the party don't get to come around and like be ready to just be like bam, bam, bam,
Yeah.
like teamwork, etc. So like at that moment in time, I had to be like, what's more important for this individual player? And it's not like winning well.
Yeah.
Like they didn't mind if we got the shit kicked out of us and we weren't like doing smart battle strategy. Yeah. The next one. So this is an interesting one because I think there's a lot of different ways in. So the topic is getting beginner players to think imaginatively about what they can do, not video gamey, is the exact way to put it. So it's, and that's a fine thing because sometimes you tell people like, oh, it's a game, you can do whatever you want. And like, one of the great things about playing with friends or playing with people in general is like when you give people carte blanche, you'll quickly find out what type of people they are. So there's a danger to that as well. Sometimes where you're like, maybe don't do that because you're scaring me as a person. But yeah, I suppose with that in mind, any ways for getting beginner players to think outside the box and like it's not just like mission flags video games.
I think your best bet there is if this is a new player for a big, campaign you're running, maybe start off with a couple really stupid one-shots. Maybe in the system that you're using, but maybe something totally different. Play a honey heist, play just something silly where there really are no rules, and be ready to kind of allow stupid things to happen. So I ran Himbos of Myth and Metal recently. And the people I was playing with, Declan at the end did something incredibly stupid. And my answer was yes, but why? Like, what is the point of this? What is the outcome of this? What's the intention? You can do it. You can all, this is a one shot. This is charity. Nobody cares. You can all do whatever you want to do. Just make it make sense in the story. And I think just loosen things up with a little one shot, with something funny, with something stupid, to just kind of show them what is possible. And maybe if possible to pair them with players who are a bit more experienced in that kind of play so that they can, I'm doing this crazy stupid thing that makes no sense to anybody and we're having fun. And then maybe they see that and go, oh, right, okay, that's what we're doing. And then you go back to your session 0 for the campaign and you tighten it up and you close up your loose ends and stuff. But like, just let everyone get comfy and fun and loose first. Because I think a lot of people come into it going, oh, that's a lot of rules. That's a lot of, expectation. That's a lot of collaboration. Just be loose and silly first. And then you can kind of put the rules on top of that.
This is a build on that for when the rules come in. And I actually think it is something that if a player did it would be bad etiquette. So it is on the DM. There's this moment when a new player starts playing, and especially if they pick like a magic caster, and they're like, I cast this. And like in their head, you can clearly see their intention. They're like, I want this spell to do this.
Yeah.
But the spell, they've either misread it or it just doesn't do that. Like Minor Illusion is a classic one. And I think DMs around the world have just kind of made it up in their own thing. It doesn't move and it doesn't make noises and it's not a hologram.
Yeah.
It is a singular image that just sits there. So like, I Minor Illusion the door closing. No, you don't.
Actually,
that's a verb. But the intention there is there should be a cantrip that just does like a small illusion.
Yeah.
Because it's more fun. So something I used to say to when I was DMing to new players is, don't tell me specifically what you do if you're unsure what a spell does. Tell me what you want to do, and I'll work with you to be like, oh, you should probably cast this, or like, I'm kind of okay if, because I've been playing long enough, if they're like, I want to do this, and there's no spell that's like that. I'm like, it feels like it's about 3rd level. Are you okay using a 3rd level spell slot to achieve that? And with that, I'll either do a saving throw or you'll do a spell attack, because we know the dice is just going to decide anyway.
Yeah.
But a good way to have, like, I think when you give new players that freedom, while also just letting them know, like, hey, this is just at my table, by the way. You might come across a DM who's just like, but like Wall of Fire works like this.
Yeah.
That's okay, showing them the bounds of imagination, because like there's nothing worse than casting a spell like friends or whatever, and it's like, and then they're hostile to you, and you're like, what? I didn't intend that. It's like, okay, and then it's like everyone gets slowed down, and it's so potentially on the DM side is just tell me what you're trying to accomplish, and I'll help you. I'm not trying to stop you.
Yeah,
I'll help you get there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh man, this is in direct contradiction to what I just said, which is good, I suppose. So in terms of player discussions, that the DM shouldn't hold your hand. You have to do some work and research. So almost the exact opposite of what I was saying there. But I think in general, I was specifically talking about spells because they can be confusing and people can get them wrong. But the DM shouldn't hold your hand. I think that's because we've just jumped from talking about beginners. And if we said to like experienced players, I think there's a certain level of like, come on, you've been playing for like months now. Like there's the so it's tough. I don't even know how to answer that. Player DM shouldn't hold your hand. Yeah. I don't know how I feel about that actually. Do I agree? Do you agree?
I think it's a balance. I think somebody at the table should know what they're doing.
Yes.
And just like you said, maybe it's not always the DM. Maybe somebody else at the table knows the rules a bit better. Because especially a system like D&D, it's big and thick and crunchy, and there's lots of rules. And there's systems that are way more rules heavy even. And I think it depends on who's playing and how good they are with learning and retaining that information. I don't know what I'm doing when I'm at the table. I have no idea. I don't think most of us do. In fact, you might be the closest we have to a rules lawyer at the table, which is scary.
Yeah, because I, like, anyone who's watched this show or seen me DM, like, I say things with the confidence of someone who knows what they're talking about and absolutely doesn't.
I think it's your responsibility as a player to have a good idea of what you're getting into. A overview of the rules and how the game is played and the expectations. But I think there's no harm in the table pausing to look up something. We do it all the time.
True. And I think, I like, as you were talking, as you were convincing me, I know when I'm like, I've been a player for so long that I've almost forgotten like the DM side of things. And I assume this might come from a DM, which is like, I do get the impulse behind like, come on guys, know your spells. Like, full, fair, 100%. I should do that. I should know what I'm doing. I should know what I'm planning. And also to the point of like what we were talking about earlier about like push the story forward, like drive action, like make big calls, commit to something. That's about prep too. It's like arrive at the table and like there's nothing worse than like the snow falls, the townfolk are there. It's a bright early morning. So what do you want to do? And then everyone's like, and you're like, so that is a kind of like DM, don't hold your hand. It's like, you have all the information you have.
Yeah.
You know, and we're kind of, I'm going to regret this because we're kind of moving into that in season 3, which is like, we have all the plot pieces.
Yeah, we just got to put them together and do something with them.
We just got to put them together and commit to something. And the fear there is that like, what if we commit to the wrong thing and we die?
Oops.
Yeah, what are you going to do? I have 4 more. I think this is the same vibe. So this is from Matt's Ventricon, which I totally can.
Yes, I think that's safe.
Yeah. Which is, while your GM needs to bring it, every player needs to as well. Your character's your own, so bring it. And that's just a lovely piece of advice. It's like, you have ownership in this. It's not your friend's game that you're just on the railroad to narrative town. And then learn your characters and take notes. Totally agree. So that's all kind of coming from the same vibe.
Yeah.
And then this is one from Hear Us Out, which if you know Paul from Homebrew, you know Paul does an entertainment show called Hear Us Out on YouTube. And they're saying, what should a first-time player prepare against what an experienced player? And I think that's a lovely summary of hand-holding to not hand-holding.
Yeah.
And like wraps us up a little bit.
Yeah. I think if you're brand new to TTRPGs, have your character, have an idea of your character, because again, that'll flesh out as you go. Have an idea of how the game plays. and make sure that session 0 or something similar is there, that you have an idea of the world you're getting into and a very loose idea of the story you're going to be playing. And know your etiquette. Know how to be a good player. But then a more experienced player, you should have your list of spells. You should have, you should know the rules a bit better. Still, never any harm looking something up and double checking, but you should know quite well what you're getting into, and you should have some kind of, I'd say, clearer direction where you're trying to go with this, or what the team are trying to do with this.
Yeah, and it's for the new beginners, for the players, like, as long as you don't expect the game to run the same way, there is no harm, like, dipping into an actual play show, just watching it. Like, I wish I had 2 to recommend you that, but we don't, neither of the ones. No, you definitely could. Dip into a Romancing the Dungeon episode, see how we play. Dip into a Homebrew episode, see how it's done over there. You'll see, actually, if you dip into both, you'll see the different styles and see how every table is different. There are people, doing this professionally full time that you can dip into big shows. And the reason I say, like, just don't expect it to run the same way is that, like, you're not going to get a Matt or a Brennan or a Bria at the table. Like, that's you might be lucky and get a Declan. Or you might crap it and get a bid.
No.
But every DM's different, so that's where the whole session 0 is. We've got one more, and I think it's not even something to discuss, but a lovely note to end on. And this is from Wayne, who is the DM of Sorcery Shenanigans, another actual play you can go check out. And it is to be mindful of the entire table. Playing any TTRPG is a group effort. Be kind and mindful. And I think within that is also the DM. DM is a player, and a good one will be, like, antagonistic to you in the best ways, but not want you to lose. So that is the end. And Wayne is another DM who's going to be at the D&D the Castle.
Oh, very good.
So you'll see myself, Wayne, and Declan all there, all running. You look around the room, all running very different games. That brings us to the end of this stream. Now, to give just a quick shout out to our wonderful producer of today's show. Justine's has done a fantastic job, but she doesn't know that I sometimes end with a news story. So your cue, which I totally forgot to tell you, just to let you know that, like, when you can hit end stream or whatever, is when I say, "May the dice gods have mercy on us all." And I haven't figured out a proper way to end this, but when I hit that, I'll say, like, "We've been on a roll, you've been watching when the dice gods have mercy on us all." That will be the kind of, like, the end of my bit. All right, cool. And now for some news to close out the show. Closing out the broadcast this evening, actually, what do I have here? Some happy news. The monarchs of Joyfulton are delighted to announce the engagement and immediate betrothal of their heir and only daughter, Lightheart, to the mysterious new enchanter Dreadful the Devious, who we're being told only arrived in the court some days ago. The realm would like to insist that none of them are being held against their will. They're very happy for the celebratory ceremony to go ahead, to pay no mind to the ritual sacrifice table forged from pure obsidian being shipped in, and under no circumstances are heroes to attend. Well, from everyone here at On A Roll, we wish you a joyous and happy matrimony. That's all from us in the studio this week. We've been on a roll. You've been watching. May the dice gods have mercy on us all.
Wonderful.
We did it!